Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to go ahead and get started with our webinar entitled Micronutrients for Optimal Sleep. Personally, I am super excited. We have a wonderful guest speaker, Dr. Smita Patel. My name is Dr. Lenore Powell, and I am going to be your moderator for today's conversation. So let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Patel. One second, let me get the slides here. Sorry about that. All right, so Dr. Patel is an integrative neurologist and a sleep medicine physician, a physician leader, and an entrepreneur. She graduated from Midwestern University Chicago College of Osteopathic Medicine in 2001. She went on to complete her neurological training at the Medical College of Wisconsin in 2005 and sleep medicine training at the University of Chicago in 2006. Additionally, she completed a 2-year fellowship in integrative medicine at the University of Arizona in Tucson, Arizona, under Dr. Andrew Weil in 2011. With over 19 years of experience working in hospitals across the healthcare industry, Dr. Patel is also involved as the Vice President of the Illinois State Neurological Society, which is a nonprofit organization which aims to advocate on behalf of patients for access to neurological care and promoting continuing education of neurologists and the public of Illinois. Dr. Patel is the director of Center for Brain Health at North Shore University Health System in Illinois and is now the founder of iNeuro Institute. With iNeuro Institute, she champions for all patients to have access to factual medical information and healthcare resources despite barriers due to social economic status or bias due to race, ethnicity, gender, religion, even sexual orientation. She regularly lectures to the community on integrative neurology and sleep, namely the effects of nutrition, meditation yoga, exercise, sleep acupuncture, and evidence-based supplements on the health of your nervous system. So before we begin, if you have any questions or technical issues, please go ahead and just type them into the chat box or the questions box, making sure to send them to the organizer at any time during the webinar, and we will definitely try to assist with any technical issues as they arise, and we'll also be compiling your clinical questions to address in the final few minutes of the webinar. The presentation is currently available for download. You can access it under the Handouts tab. Simply click the link and the download process should begin. In addition, you will have access to the presentation and the slide deck on our website within a few days after the webinar, and you can access these resources, previous webinar recordings, brief video modules, and other really cool materials by clicking the Clinicians tab on the home page. So due to the continued increase in non-acute patient appointments through telemedicine, I just want to remind everyone that we do have many non-invasive urine, saliva, blood spot, stool testing collection packs that can actually be shipped directly to your patients for specimen collection at home. And you can actually also complete the requisition 100% online as well. So for more information, just visit your MyGDX account and you'll be directed from there. So I'm going to turn over the role now of presenter to Dr. Patel. All right.
Hi, can you see my screen?
I can see your screen. Perfect. Awesome, awesome.
Great. Hi. So I'm Dr. Smita Patel, an integrative neurologist and sleep medicine specialist. Thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to talk more with you on Genova Diagnostics webinar. I've enjoyed using the test, so it's a great pleasure to speak with you here today. So today I'll be talking about a foundation of health and wellness, sleep, and of course, one of my favorite topics to talk about. There we go. Okay. First, I'll be providing an overview of sleep and health in general and what happens and why it's important that we sleep. I'll discuss how nutrition affects sleep, some reasonable dietary approaches for maximizing health in general, and then I'll discuss certain micronutrient deficiencies and its impact on sleep, and perhaps touching on nutritional supplementation, which may enhance sleep. So are you a good sleeper or a problem sleeper? People who have suffered repeated nights of poor sleep usually identify themselves as an quote unquote insomniac, no matter what the cause is. And so many times, bad sleep is due to problematic behaviors, some things like lack of routine, drinking more alcohol, excessive screen time, or sleeping pills. Of course, good sleep starts with creating an environment for sleep. And when practiced consistently, I believe you can be a good sleeper too. I'd like to just take a moment to talk about sleeping pills and sleeping medications. Sleeping pills are not a good option for long-term use or long-term sleep issues. They don't take into consideration the root cause or the fundamental aspect of sleep, which includes understanding your sleep drive, your body clock or circadian rhythm, and mindset and the hyperarousal response. So sleeping pills may put you to sleep, but not a great long-term solution. We can see here the various side effects with use of sleeping pills. 5 times increased risk of memory and concentration problems, a 4 times increased risk of daytime fatigue, 2 times increased risk of falls and fractures, including the hip and the wrist, and then 2 times increased risk of having a motor vehicle accident while driving. So I should add that sleeping pills are not always bad, and I have prescribed them for the right patient condition. There are situations where sleeping pills can be used appropriately and could be a very handy tool. When I use sleep aids for acute stressors, I typically use the lowest dose possible for the shortest amount of time. Sleep aids can impact the sleep architecture. So, for example, a medication like benzodiazepines or Ambien can both reduce the amount of slow wave sleep or deep sleep someone can have. So, I personally don't think it's a great idea for long-term use. So, 2 things to understand about natural healthy sleep. And so I'm going to try to explain this slide to you. We have a sleep drive or sleep pressure, which increases the longer you stay awake. So here in the down arrow, your sleep pressure is building up the longer you stay awake, and you can pay attention to maybe 9 a.m. as the start of the day, and as the day goes on, that sleep pressure increases. And then we have another force, the circadian rhythm. So every living thing has a circadian rhythm. Algae, bacteria, plants, us humans, even your pet has a circadian rhythm. Our body clock is entrained to the day and night cycle, and approximately it lasts like a 24-hour cycle. So as you go around the clock in the morning, we have cortisol release, our blood pressure goes up, our reaction time increases, our body temperature also goes up. Then in the evening, we have melatonin secretion, we have deep sleep, our body temperature goes down during sleep, and the cycle continues. So now the sleep drive and the circadian rhythm should match up to help you promote sleep. And that's why we call this the 2-process model. Sleep drive makes us sleepy, and you can think of the circadian rhythm or the circadian drive as an alerting signal. So when sleep drive is at its max peak, the alerting signal goes down and it kind of opens up a gate to a sleep gate, and it makes us sleepy. So in this example, around 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. is that sleep gate. And you want to make sure that the sleep drive is lined up with the body clock. So when we go to bed at different times on weekends, or maybe even weekdays, sometimes that difference can be a 3-hour difference for some people. And we call this social jet lag. So that's why it's important to keep our body clock and our homeostatic drive in line. Why do we sleep? Well, it's a basic biological requirement for now, until evolution occurs when we don't need sleep. But until then, we do need to spend about a third of our lives sleeping. Sleep is critical for health and longevity. Also, it's widely accepted to possess dynamic healing powers. When we don't sleep or cut our sleep short, which most frequently happens, we call that sleep deprivation. When we cut our sleep by even 30 minutes, let's say Monday through Thursday, we put ourselves at risk for cognitive dysfunction. We have hang on. So the brain has a lymphatic system, which removes toxins from our brains, but only when we sleep. So the brain does so much cognitive work, which involves creative thinking, which happens in the frontal lobe, math and logic in our parietal lobe, language in our temporal lobe, judgment and impulsivity in our prefrontal cortex, memory and learning in the neocortex. We see a lot of studies on lack of sleep and how it impacts learning and memory, and how sleep can help with recall, which can be more of an issue as we get older. Sleep deprivation and poor sleep also leads to decreased immunity, which of course is really important during the pandemic to have your immune system working as optimally as possible. Sleep deprivation or poor sleep can lead to poor mood and emotional health and decreased metabolic function and weight gain, as well as decreased cardiovascular health. So from a biochemical perspective, the main component when your brain rests and your body is doing its job is to clear out the daytime buildup of adenosine, which then allows you to feel awake and alert, focused, and without that brain fog. Adenosine is a byproduct of cellular metabolism. It reduces brain activity and makes us feel sleepy. So caffeine blocks the effects of adenosine, so it wakes you up. How much sleep do we need? I'm going to share some pediatric information as well here. All children and adults do develop differently. All children develop differently, and then adults also need a different amount as well compared to children. And I'm going to try to explain it to you as like the Goldilocks principle. So where you need to figure out what is the right amount for you on an individual basis. But although most of us should really be around these hours of sleep range. So a child needs about 12-ish hours of sleep by 8 years of age. During adolescence, our brains are wired to stay up late and function later in the night, but they still need 9 to 10 hours of sleep. So it's problematic since our brains are not ready to rest until later, but they still need to wake up early for school. So this is kind of a big discussion for school-age kids with their parents in the schools. So I think in the teen years, they need about 8 to 10 hours of sleep. And for adults between ages of 18 to 64, that's what kind of the studies have really looked at. We're looking more like 7 to 9 hours a night for optimal health. And a lot of adults probably sleep less than 6 hours nightly. That's the shocker of it. So what does sleep deprivation look like? You may be tired and drowsy during the day. You know, you could be asleep within 5 minutes of laying down, or you're wide awake upon retiring, just kind of like that second wind. There is reduced mental alertness. We've touched on increased risk of obesity, heart disease, and diabetes. There's poor hand and eye coordination. There's poor focus and concentration. And you can have micro sleeps where you fall asleep for a short period of time and it's not a restful sleep. I mean, I'm talking really quick here. Sleep deprivation and disease in a nutshell. Basically, short sleep can impair your glucose metabolism and increase your risk for type 2 diabetes. Adenosine is not cleared from the body, so leaving you with restlessness. You can have poor mood and decreased immunity and decreased ability to learn and perform. So from a biochemical perspective, we need to sleep since the impact on our short-term and long-term consequences on our health is huge. What happens and what can drive sleep concerns? We often look at adults with sleep issues and address sleep via prescriptions. We don't have medical interventions to address all the sleeplessness. We tend to use medications or cognitive behavior therapy in a conventional sleep practice. Integratively, I think we need to have a big picture perspective to evaluate sleep. Again, I'm not against the use of sleeping medications for short-term issues, but from a longer-term perspective, all these other biochemical neurotransmitters can also impact sleep. And so all of these can impact your body's ability to rest and sleep and rejuvenate. So unless you're targeting the right one, you may be trying something that's not targeted appropriately and it doesn't work, and then you're left feeling frustrated. How come the melatonin didn't work? So what are the healthiest foods to eat? From a nutrition perspective, we should be thinking about how to help us go to sleep. And that's why I bring up this slide. It turns out what you choose to eat is an important factor in determining how well you sleep too. So an overall healthy diet is important for good sleep as well as all around good health. What are the healthiest foods to eat? We should be looking at whole healthy food, balanced meals, nutritious meals. From macronutrients, we should be focusing on complex carbs, healthy protein, good fats and oils to get your omegas, plant protein from legumes and grains, and also good to have fermented foods and sprouted grains. Eating the right amount, not too much, not too little. Do you have allergies to food that you need to eliminate? What should you be adding that you need? Here's a closer look at the Mediterranean diet pyramid. We want to be getting daily physical activity as well as fruits and veggies as a big part of the diet. Also to note, while wine in moderation, just to keep in mind that alcohol and caffeine can impact sleep as well. And also included is water, which I think many tend to forget. So we should be having plenty of water to keep our body hydrated, about half your weight in ounces, as well as whole, unprocessed foods. What should we not see there? Ideally, no chips, crackers, candy, no soda, no processed foods, none of the fun foods, I guess. Ideally, no frozen meals, although you can find some brands that don't have all the additives. I try to say, no refined flours and no refined sugars, no hydrogenated fats. I think sometimes we skip the ingredients on the peanut butter because it's always there in some of the peanut butter supplies. And then avoid artificial colors and sweeteners, and you want to be pesticide free as well. So many of you already know when you eat poorly, when you have increased saturated fats, this leads to more inflammation. And that does not help sleep. So here are a few nutrition and sleep studies. A research published in the Journal of Clinical Sleep Medicine found that people who eat diets high in sugar and refined carbs tend to take a longer time to fall asleep and wake up more frequently during the night. In the Journal of Human Nutrition and Dietetics, we see bidirectionality. So poor sleep influences diet. Partial sleep restriction with duration of less than 5.5 hours per day increases intake of fat, protein, and carbohydrates. And here in nutrients, this study looked at about 50% of participants were good sleepers, while the other half were poor sleepers. Good sleepers had a significantly higher adherence to the Mediterranean diet, which also had lower BMI and smaller waist circumferences. So what I'm trying to share is that by checking nutrition status, you get to pair the best of nutrition to create a new category between supplements and medications for proactive health, kind of like this proactive wellness. We're going to take a closer look at your nutrients here. So here I'm going to dive into some of these nutrients: magnesium, vitamin D, vitamin A, fatty acids, and glycine. So magnesium is an essential element required as a cofactor for over 300 enzymatic reactions and is necessary for the biochemical functioning of numerous metabolic pathways. Magnesium is probably the mineral we look to most often for turning the circuits down. So for example, it has therapeutic usefulness in adults for reducing anxiety, blood pressure, headaches, and muscle twitches or restless leg syndrome even, and promotes that relaxation and healthy sleep. Magnesium should be considered as an adjunct for mood disorders such as depression and ADD. And to add, with the alarming increase in diabetes in the general population, it'd be prudent to optimize magnesium intake for diabetes prevention as well. I would say a lot of older adults have some sleep trouble, mostly with difficulty getting to sleep, early awakening, or feeling unrefreshed upon awakening. And so with aging, several changes occur that can place one at risk for insomnia as well, including age-related changes in the circadian rhythm, environmental and lifestyle changes, and decreased nutrients in intake, as well as absorption. So improving magnesium status is associated with better sleep quality. And for one thing, magnesium may also mimic the action of melatonin. It also increases the neurotransmitter GABA in the brain, which is responsible for slowing your thinking down and helping you fall asleep. I have found that supplementation of a little bit of magnesium does seem to help improve sleep, as well as in some cases it can help with restless legs. There was a study that looked at a supplementation of 500 milligrams of magnesium and has been associated with significant improvement in insomnia severity index, sleep time, sleep efficiency, sleep onset latency, serum cortisol concentration, serum renin, and melatonin. So when I supplement, I tend to typically start with magnesium glycinate or citrate, since these formulations are usually the best tolerated and absorbed. You can find magnesium in foods such as dark green veggies, legumes, nuts, whole grains, and fish. Bananas and avocados are also good sources. And, it makes me wonder why we have so much magnesium deficiency. And what I find is that basically magnesium has been progressively declining in our food supply, probably due to the emergence of these highly processed foods, maybe our fertilizers and soil depletion. Refining grains also seems to remove up to 80% of magnesium, which was originally present in the foods. And consumption of refined sugars, soft drinks, and caffeine also seems to contribute to some of this magnesium depletion in our food sources. We're going to talk about vitamin D. Vitamin D has been really popular these days, I think with the pandemic too, showing how it might help with decreasing the risk of developing a bad COVID infection. But here we're looking at vitamin D and sleep And so vitamin D has shown to improve sleep quality, reduce sleep latency, which I should also explain that means that how quickly you fall asleep. And it improved sleep duration, which is how long you sleep, and improves subjective sleep quality. So there are areas of the brain which are associated with sleep-wake regulation, specifically in like the diencephalon and the brainstem nuclei. And vitamin D seems to have some target neuron receptors there, and so it's suggesting that we have some direct central effects of vitamin D on sleep as well. Multiple studies have shown a positive impact on regular vitamin D supplementation on sleep, as well as behavioral symptoms and cognitive function in children and adults. So, I don't feel like we test children as much as we may test adults for their vitamin D levels. But it seems that if you have, a child who might be sleeping poorly, it may not be a bad idea to have that checked out as well. So beyond sun exposure, which is where we mostly think about getting vitamin D, vitamin D you can get from foods as well, mostly fatty fish and fish oils, egg yolks, as well as the fortified foods like dairy and juices seems to be another way to get vitamin D. Of course, when we put sunscreen on, we're blocking some of the ability to make vitamin D from the sun. And so, of course, we want to put sunscreen on so you don't get skin cancer. But at the same time, you might then need to look at supplementing vitamin D levels. So vitamin A is an important, another important micronutrient. From plants, we get vitamin A as carotenoids, and from animal food sources, we get it as retinol. Its active metabolite, retinoic acid, binds to nuclear hormone receptors, thereby regulating gene transcription programs in various cells. And I like to think of retinol after the word retina, which helps us remember that it's like for the eyes. So when blue light from sunshine enters our eyes, vitamin A translates into a signal that tells our brain it is daytime. When the signal wanes, our brain knows that it's nighttime. This means that vitamin A plays an essential role in helping us fall asleep on time, get high quality sleep, hopefully sleep long enough, waking up feeling rested, and staying alert and energetic throughout the day. So it helps keep our circadian rhythm in check and stable. So we talked a little bit about circadian rhythm earlier, and remember that we want to have that morning sunshine. So if we use our technology smartly, we can replicate natural rhythms while also having control over our comfort and lifestyle. Practical ways to approach this, and I'm going to tell you that, but hopefully it helps listeners understand why sleep experts say this, is that we want to make sure that we spend about half an hour to an hour in the outside sun in the morning soon after waking, because this helps kind of set the circadian rhythm. We have our suprachiasmatic nucleus right behind the eye, and that is the rhythm generator for our bodies. And so when we get that direct sunlight, we're really setting the clock and kind of keeping it trained, because light is a really strong Zeitgeber, which helps us keep that circadian rhythm entrained. So you want to make sure that the environmental temperature peaks in the day, and that's when you get that morning sun, kind of helps you warm you up, and then declines when you're sleeping. So when it's towards night, we want to use dim light at night. And so if we're forced to using a lot of screens because now we work from home and everything else is at home, of course you could be watching TV, you're on your phone, you're on your computer, so there's a lot of bright light coming from those sources. Or let's just say you're even reading a book, but you need bright enough light to read your book. This is where I would probably suggest using some blue light blocking technology, so like our blue blocking glasses. So in the evening, we can kind of try to mimic a nighttime and telling our suprachiasmatic nucleus, it's time to start winding down. We get vitamin A from many of our orange foods, things like sweet potato, carrots, cantaloupe. Um, uh, Other sources like beef liver or other organ meats are also great sources of vitamin A. I don't know that many people who eat that, but of course, also these foods are also high in cholesterol, so you might want to limit the amount you eat. Other sources are like fish, like salmon, green leafy vegetables, the green, orange, and yellow vegetables such as broccoli, carrots, and squash are all have vitamin A. Of course, the dairy products are another good source to have for vitamin A. So one thing I want you to be careful about with vitamin A is that when you get vitamin A in dietary supplements, usually it can come in the form of synthetic vitamin A, which is in the form of retinol acetate or retinol palmitate, which is like a preformed vitamin A. And it could also come as a beta carotene, and what we usually refer to that as provitamin A. And of course, it can come as a combination of the preformed and the provitamin A as well in these supplements. My caution to you is if you take too much synthetic vitamin A, this can be harmful. So there are some upper limits as to how much preformed vitamin A a person should have. And so usually I like to I prefer vitamin A supplementation in the form of beta carotene or in foods. This way I know for sure nothing harmful can happen. Omega-3. The omega-3 fatty acids, so DHA and EPA, are essentially important to the health of every cell in our body. They have particular importance for fatty tissues of the brain where they are found at high levels and impact not only inflammation and cellular membrane function, but also neurotransmission. So omega-3 supplements typically sourced from fish such as salmon, sardines, anchovies, or mackerel have a high safety profile in individuals of all ages. So this turns out that unhealthy fats, things like saturated fats, could negatively affect the body's normal sleep-wake cycle, increasing sleep latency, which is how long it takes you to fall asleep, and reducing sleep efficiency, which means the time that you're in bed to the time you're out of bed, it's not as efficiently used as possible. So if we have a lot more saturated fats, studies suggest that it might impact your sleep efficiency as well as how long it takes you to fall asleep. In contrast to bad fats, good fats have a positive correlation between better sleep quality and oily fish consumption. There was a study of 95 male adults consuming Atlantic salmon 3 times per week from September to February, and it gave a positive impact on sleep in general and also on daily functioning effect on the resting heart rate and the EPA and DHA levels. So for those who don't understand the resting heart rate variability, I think it's important to know that if you have a low heart rate variability, it's associated with poor health outcomes. And so supplementing with good fish, good fats, or if you need to take omega-3 supplements, which consists of EPA and DHA, you can have a better functioning heart rate variability. And The other good thing about omega-3s is that it seems to also help with depression and anxiety. And so sometimes with all of what's going on, that seems to be a new diagnosis, coronasomnia, and we're just, all in tied up with all the uncertainty that's happening. And so it does kind of seem to be contributing to a lot more depression, anxiety, or mood issues these days. And so we might see improvement with supplementation with omega-3 fatty acids. And given their high level of tolerability and safety, omega-3 fatty acids are important to consider, I think, especially in those, particularly with low levels of dietary intake. So if supplementing, I like to aim for the EPA plus the DHA to be around 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams per day. Excuse me. So here we're going to talk about glycine. I have found glycine kind of an interesting nutrient. It's actually an amino acid and a building block for protein. It helps the body break down and transport nutrients and fat to be used by cells for energy. Glycine is essential for building muscle mass and the form of stretchy, flexible cartilage, which is particularly important as we get older. It also helps heal damaged joints. So glycine is important for digestion as well as cognitive function. And of course, it also helps you sleep better. So um, another good thing about glycine is that it's also a precursor for a variety of important metabolites, such as glutathione. Glycine has the property to enhance the quality of sleep and neurological functions. And I just wanted to mention that glutathione is like this very powerful antioxidant. So again, nice to have around in our bodies. So the glycine seems to provide an important component for healthy REM and delta sleep, and helps promote healthy circadian rhythm. And despite clinical evidence of its efficacy, the details of its mechanisms seems to be poorly understood. We can get glycine from meats, broths, legumes, spinach, dried seaweed. I usually suggest starting glycine around 500 to 1,000 milligrams per day. The powder form has a sweet taste, so can easily be added to like your smoothie or maybe your water bottle. It's not sugar, it just has a sweet taste. That's just how it comes. And this also does come in a pill form, then you don't get to taste it at all. So I don't find any drawbacks in getting patients to be compliant with glycine, not from the taste alone. I want to share some cases with you to discuss how I have used the NutrEval profile, and so let's get started with that. Here we have a 37-year-old female. Her reason for coming to see me for sleep was really she had a slight fender bender. Luckily, no one got injured. She was actually stopped at a stoplight, and before you know it, her car kind of was rolling and then kind of bumped the person in front of her. So she was very traumatized. And she's like, I just don't understand. I try to keep a regular bedtime. I sleep from 9 p.m. to 5:30. I don't take any naps. She was working full time. She had 2 kids, and kids were sleeping through the night. So she was told that maybe she was snoring. So, of course, we did a sleep study because she has daytime fatigue. She got into a little fender bender and then she's snoring. So we want to just double check and make sure she doesn't have sleep apnea. And she didn't have sleep apnea. So, so what from a conventional perspective should we do now to try to help her feel more alert during the day? She didn't really drink caffeine. It didn't really agree with her. She was a social drinker. She did admit to being mostly vegetarian and not a really good one at that because she wasn't eating a whole lot of veggies. So when we did the NutraEval on her, you can see that from the nutrients we talked about just now is that magnesium was a very high need. Vitamin D was borderline. Vitamin A was also borderline. Um, and when we go to this next page, omega-3s, I'm going to get back to that. Although looked okay, she could benefit from some additional supplementation of omega-3s and then of course some supplementation of glycine. I should also mention, because I think I forgot, that during her second pregnancy, she was diagnosed with gestational diabetes. And so there, were some blood sugar issues as well. And so when I show you her omega-3s here, it's greater than the reference range at 5.9, but we really want to try to push omega-3s into the 8 to 10% omega index there. And when we look at some other nutrient oxidative stress markers, glutathione, low energy, I think that, that was part of her problem. So, for this patient, we did start her on some magnesium, and it helped her energy, it helped her headaches. We also put her on a better diet. She started eating more salads and more veggies, and so that also helped improve her blood sugars. And we improved her vitamin D level, and so all in all, again, using these nutrients, it seemed to have helped her condition overall, as well as help her sleep and improved her functioning during the daytime. And the beauty of this was that she didn't need any daytime stimulants because, in a sleep world, what do you do to someone who doesn't have sleep apnea, sleeps well, but is tired during the day? So in this case, some nutrients helped her overall function and hopefully will continue to help her health. So uh, here we look at a 57-year-old female, and she came in with sleep concerns, but also had a family history of dementia, and so had some concerns around that as well. She reported sleeping, well. She had leg cramps, and she had found on her own that magnesium helped her. So she was taking some of that. She still had trouble with sleep maintenance, which, she would fall asleep okay, but she would wake up during the night. She mostly reported being able to fall asleep quickly, but given that she did come for sleep concerns, it did bother her a little bit. And then she was dragging herself out of bed in the morning. She kept a good routine. She went to bed between 10 and 11 and woke up around 6:30. She usually didn't nap. And uh, she has a family history of dementia. And then she was taking some vitamins. She took vitamin D. Her lowest level was 26. And then at the time of the testing, her level for NutraEval was 38, so not bad, but could be a little bit higher, as we all I try to aim for levels between 50 and 70. I think vitamin D levels, there's a lot of information as to what level should be, and I sometimes don't know which one to really focus on. So I've kind of picked between 50 and 70 based on everything that I've read. As the level that I try to aim my patients towards. Vitamin C, she was taking zinc every now and then, and of course she was taking the magnesium. So when we look at her NutraEval, even though she was taking some magnesium, she was still a little borderline low. Vitamin A was okay, so she was getting enough from her foods, hopefully. And then when we look at her omegas, again, she could benefit from a little bit of supplementation and some more glycine supplementation as well. When I look little bit more into her Nutra-Eval. So again, her omega-3 index here was 4.7. So again, above the reference range, but not in the green. You know, we really want it to be between 8 and 10% there. And then her glutathione was really low. And so again, that might be a reason why she was needing her caffeine as well as, you know, kind of dragging out of bed in the morning. She didn't nap because she was, you know, just had other things to do like work and things. But that was one of her reasons for coming in, is because, you know, she didn't feel she slept well and she didn't have enough energy. And here we're going to look at a 62-year-old lady who also had some sleep concerns. She was diagnosed with sleep apnea. She had mild sleep apnea in non-REM sleep, but then more severe in REM sleep. She wasn't able to tolerate the CPAP, and so she was using an oral appliance. She didn't have good quality of sleep, and sleep was a big concern for her for some time. She didn't have a good routine, really, you know, so she would get distracted near bedtime, end up staying awake to work on something or watch TV. And there was some component of anxiety with her as well. And so there was awakenings during the night, and she wasn't always able to get back to sleep. Um, so she, you know, had some other um, past medical history as well, and she was overweight. She had high blood pressure, high cholesterol. She didn't eat so well, and I think she had every good intention to eat well, but if a stressor came her way, you know, she would fall off the path of what she intended to eat. And she had very limited exercise. So her vitamin D level at the lowest was 18, and at the time of the Nutra-Eval was 51. Um, and she was taking some supplementation to try to help with sleep. So when we look closer at her Nutra-Eval, she did have some low vitamin A, low magnesium, and she had, you know, need for glycine. And when we look at her omegas, you know, again, could use a little bit of supplementation, but overall was okay. And if I skip over to her omega-3s. So again, hers was better than the other two, you know, at 7.2. And that's why just a little touch of that maybe hopefully will help. And her glutathione, her energy was low. You know, her major antioxidant was borderline low there. And so, you know, what I liked about this particular case, though, is that she was very dedicated to improving her numbers. She did, she did do Nutra-Evals over time, and she did manage to eat better and improve her nutrient intake overall. And so we don't have a copy of that here today, but that her first page looks really good at just recently, we just recently checked it. And so, you know, we have her taking supplements as maintenance now, and she finally found her sweet spot with better nutrition, getting good sleep, you know, trying to stay on a regular schedule. And of course, now she's also exercising so regularly. So, you know, so again, I'm not sure over time, it just takes a little time to sink in for some people, but she's doing phenomenally well now. So it's nice to see. So what can you do for better sleep? Avoid food roughly 3 hours before bedtime. And we say this, you know, because there does seem to be some research on having the time to digest your food. And so that's where the 3 hours kind of comes into play. And alcohol, you know, of course, it does make you sleepy, but it does also lead to more awakenings during the night as the alcohol is metabolized. Caffeine, which when does this become problematic? I would say, up to 3 cups of coffee per day before 2 p.m. seems to be a reasonable amount that um, if I had to put it, but I really like to individualize that. So I think some people can handle caffeine. I still don't think you should have more than 3 cups, but some people can't handle it at all, and so therefore maybe shouldn't have any. And of course, fatty, fried, spicy foods can also interfere with sleep. And so, combining carbohydrates with proteins seems to be another thing. If you really need a bedtime snack, I tend to tell patients to use like a apple with nut butter. Nuts and seeds are a nice, another great way to have as a quick little small snack. And not the cupcakes sitting on the table, if that's ever happening. But so that's what you should not do, and try to aiming more for, these sleep promoting foods, squash or sweet potatoes. Sounds weird, but having a little bit of that as a complex carb can also help control blood sugars a little better. Warm drinks, I like those. I think it helps you kind of relax and but drinking fluids too close to bedtime, at least 2 hours, I would say not to have it 2 hours before bedtime, because that might interrupt your sleep by having to go to the bathroom. Exercise, what can I say? Just do it, right? It's really important to move your body, no matter how hard it is. Just get going. If you don't move your body, you will not move your body. So there's a lot of research on exercise and how it impacts sleep, and not the focus of our discussion here today, but there's many apps that are free and really to be able to help prioritize it to improve your brain and your body. And I feel like we should be able to do something to keep moving. I want to say, practice these good sleep, healthy hygiene. You've heard these things before, keeping a bedtime routine and wake up routine. And no matter how many times I say it, I still find people who don't keep the routine. And, on weekends, I think sometimes that can be a problematic time. And so here I would say, plus or minus an hour, right? I mean, we're all human. We're going to make some mistakes, and we're going to eat things that we're not supposed to eat. And, but I'm just trying to say that, we want to try to keep as much of a routine as possible, at least when it comes to sleep. Epsom salt baths can really be helpful for reducing anxiety, and can kind of help calm you down as well. The light is a big thing in our bedrooms. We have so many lights coming from our phone or our Bluetooth or our alarm clocks, things like this. So I really like to just say no technology in the bedroom. Keep the blackout shades, keep some heavy curtains. We do sleep better in cool temperatures. I don't prefer anybody sleep with their pets. We need our space. We need darkness, and we need sometimes we need a white noise machine. But if that is helpful to you, of course, then those are the things that I would suggest. We really do want to try to create an environment to help you sleep, because I already told you why, all the bad things that can happen to our sleep. And so really we can't afford to let this big pillar of our health kind of go to the side. And I guess one last thing I want to say is that, we really try to focus on exercising and eating healthy. And that's like a big thing, especially if there's a pill we can take, then we try to do that. But do we really take time to say, okay, today I want to sleep better? I just don't hear that too much. So with that, I'll end it as, hopefully everyone can get a good night's sleep.
Thank you so much, Dr. Patel. That was really great. I think the part for me that I thought was it really standed out was when you mentioned that we need to consider sleep as a pillar of health. And, so many times we just don't. One of the questions that we did receive is in regards to how do we evaluate patients' sleep and their quality? Like, what kind of questions do you typically ask? beyond, I mean, obviously now we know that diet is important. We also know that how long do you sleep is important, but what other questions do you typically ask to evaluate that?
Right. So in a sleep world, I have a bunch of questions. I start with, what time do you go to sleep? Tell me a little bit about your routine. What's your bedroom like? I ask all of those types of questions. I really want to pretend like I'm in that bedroom, so I understand what it feels like that they're going through. And so, again, if they have pain, do they have a good mattress? Do they have young children? So do they have pets? All the things that I kind of touched on today, really, is really what I want to understand and get a flavor for how they're sleeping, so then I can make a proper recommendation as to what we're supposed to do next. So I think all of those things are helpful, not just what time do you go to sleep and what sleeping pills do you take. I also ask what supplements they're on, of course, right? So, what are you taking? What have you heard? What have you read? And I think, I should say, a lot of doctors in general don't know all the herbs and things out there. So I think sometimes this may make patients shy away from telling you everything that they're taking. So I do find that the tool I have, right, is exceptionally helpful, that it really lets them tell me what they think they've tried, and then here now I can try to help them, if we're going to use herbs, things like that, how to what's safe, what's not safe, what's helping, what's not, what else to recommend. So all of those things revolving around how they sleep, how they perceive sleep, what have they been trying? I ask all those types of questions.
We received another question about taking magnesium and or glycine. How do you time it in relationship with bedtime?
Specifically, I haven't found that the the exact timing is has been helpful or not helpful. I haven't found that. I haven't done a study on that specifically, but usually I do tell patients to take it about an hour before bedtime. And how much they listen to that part, I guess I didn't ask. But they do take it at bedtime usually, because I want them to have the effects of relaxation. So that's where the warm bath also comes into play, is we want to use all the things to try to prep ourselves to really making an environment to go to sleep. So I really want to stop thinking about everything I've said, and I want to, not go through my work. I just want to take some time to focus on me and work on relaxation, and think some positive thoughts, grateful things things that I'm grateful for, and kind of using that routine to kind of help build that up. So timing wise, I'd like you to kind of start it about an hour before, and that's about the hour that I want you to start using that time to work on winding down.
For our last question, we did have a few people who did ask about things like 5-HTP, L-theanine, melatonin, and some other botanicals. When do you recommend those over other recommendations? For example, prescriptive agents, or what would be a scenario where you would consider those?
So I, again, try to do, I guess I don't have an example of when I would really use those. I think it's very variable and patient dependent. I have used them. I can't say I haven't, but I do try to do more as my first step approach, is, as opposed to just go randomly check on the shelf, go find what you want to go take. I do try to use more of the evidence base, figure out what they're actually in need of as a first line step. and then build on that if I needed to. So I hope that helps, but that's really has been my way of approaching this.
Great. We've also received a ton of positive feedback, and I definitely agree with the feedback that we received that this was a great webinar. And again, sleep as a pillar of health, a great addition to health paradigm. Just a lot of positive feedback and thank yous for this presentation. I think it was eye-opening for a bunch of us to really approach sleep a little bit differently with our patients. So in the interest of time, I just want to remind everybody that for additional educational materials, we like to encourage you to visit the website, www.gdx.net, or you can contact client services. We offer complimentary appointments with our medical education specialists to answer questions related to our testing, including how to choose the right test and just reviewing patient test results as well. We'd like to encourage you to register for our upcoming webinars. You will find that on the website at www.gdx.net. And lastly, if you have not already, please check out the Genova Diagnostics podcast, The Lab Report, which is focused on functional integrative medicine, specialty laboratory diagnostics, and natural therapeutics with hosts Dr. Patty and Dr. Michael and an assortment of guests. So again, Dr. Patel, thank you so much for a great presentation and just some really great knowledge to add to our clinical tool belt.
Thank you, Lenore. It's been a pleasure to be here and share this information. Appreciate it.
Bye, everyone.